The Rebbe Zalgezunzen began the Farbrengen this afternoon. That this Shabbos, the reason for the Farbrengen is because of the Yortzeit. It's the Yortzeit of the Rebbe's father. Now regarding Yortzeit, there are some that observe a day of Yortzeit and they observe it in a happy way. And there are others that observe Yortzeit in an expression of sadness. However, when Yortzeit comes out to be on a Shabbos, here the Rebbe continues, there is no doubt how to celebrate the Yortzeit, because Shabbos, we are only allowed to be happy. And our sages tell us based on the Pasuk, Uviyoim simchaschem, in your days of happiness, the Sifri says, Einu HaShabbos, this is Shabbos. So Shabbos is a day of joy, and we are prohibited to have any sadness on Shabbos. We're not allowed to be in a sad mood on Shabbos. So this Shabbos, though it's a day of Yortzeit, but according to everyone, it has to be celebrated through Simcha. Especially also that we are in the month of Av, and the month of Av, as stressed, the name of the month is Menachem Av. What the whole meaning of Menachem is also an expression of condolence on what happened of Tisha B'Av. On what happened Tisha B'Av, and now we stress the Nechama, the condolence to it, and especially furthermore, we are coming from last Shabbos was Shabbos Nachmu, and Nachmu was Nachamu Ami, a double expression of Nechama. So all of this is reasons to strengthen the Simcha on today, on this day, on the day of Shabbos. Furthermore, we are coming from the 15th of Av, which we also celebrated this week, which was this past Monday. And we know it comes Shabbos. Shabbos elevates the entire week, including also the 15th of Av, which we just had. What is the inyan of Chamisha Asa B'Av? Chamisha Asa B'Av, our sages tell us it's a day of Simcha, to such an extent that lehoyu yomim tovim liYisrael ki Chamisha Asa B'Av. No Yom Tov could be compared to the Yom Tov of the 15th of Av. If we look into the Gemara gives us reasons what is so special about this day of the 15th of Av. And interesting, the Gemara gives 5 reasons on 5 things that happened on this day, and therefore this is a day of joy, it's a day of sin. Why 5? The Rebbe continues, the 15th of Av comes after Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av is a day of sadness. Our sages tell us that 5 undesirable things happened on Tisha B'Av. Our sages tell us similar regarding the 17th day in Tammuz, Shiva Asa B'Tammuz, also that 5 undesirable things have taken place on that day. Now when we go out of the 3 weeks, and we go into a period of Nechama, we go into a period of joy, into a period of expression of happiness, so it's also with a number of 5. 5 things happened on Chamisha Asa B'Av, because this number 5 is parallel to the 5 undesirable that have happened on Tisha B'Av as well as on Shiva Asa B'Tammuz. Memele, it is these 5 inyanim which will uplift us, which will give us this spiritual elevation to be able to convert the inyanim of sadness, the inyanim of the undesirable things, into inyanim of sin. So again, it's another step higher in the expression of joy, in the expression of sin. But it goes further. Regarding the 15th of Av, the Gemara tells us, and the Rebbe spoke about it this Monday night at length, there's a Gemara. Gemara says, from Chamisha Asa B'Av, Gemara uses the expression, Man de Moisef Yosef. The one that adds, it will be added on to him. What does this mean? So Rashi right away explains, the meaning of this Gemara is that from Chamisha Asa B'Av on, the days get shorter and the nights get longer. Because it was customary in those days, particularly a person would work during the day. Once it would come night, he would stop working. So if the night becomes longer, that means a person has more time to learn Torah. So the Gemara says, and it's brought in Shulchan Aruch, that from the 15th day and of, everyone should see to it to make an increase in his daily learning of Torah. In fact, the Rebbe just spoke about it Monday night at length, where the Rebbe asked every one of us to make an increase in the shiurim of Torah as well as an increase in the contributing in tzedakah, all based on this Gemara. The Gemara uses the expression man de moisif, the one that increases his learning of Torah, he adds on the learning of Torah more than he learned until now, Yosef. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will reward him also the same way and will add on to his days and years. So what is the whole inyan of Chamisha Asa B'Av? Chamisha Asa B'Av calls for increases, to add on. And when we're talking now about adding on in joy, adding on in Simcha, from Chamisha Asa B'Av we have to increase in Simcha as well. So all of these are all reasons why this Shabbos should be a Shabbos of joy, a Shabbos of happiness. How does one express happiness? When we should really see that it has penetrated his entire body to the fullest extent. It's not enough that he sings, and it's not enough that he expresses it through any other way. The best way to express simcha, and it should be in a way that we should see that the entire person is penetrated, his entire body has been warmed, and has the inspiration of the warmth and inspiration which this simcha gives him. This we see when a person dances. Because by dancing, we see that it affects his entire body, from head to heel, that even his heels he also picks up. What does this show? It shows that he was thoroughly inspired with the concept of simcha to such an extent that it is felt in his entire body. The Rebbe concluded this sikha, therefore we will dance now, Rikud, which is the strongest expression of simcha, and the Rebbe got up and the Rebbe danced. The Rebbe said that with this rikud, with this dance, we should dance towards Mashiach. Then the Rebbe continued, we're talking about happiness, we're talking about simcha. However, we see by a person, the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu has instituted human nature, that how much a person will express his happiness regarding matters that have occurred to him or to his spouse, in no way can it be compared to the happiness when something good happens to his child. When something good happens to a person's child, here he really expresses the highest level of simcha. And that is why in Chassidus, when Chassidus wants to explain and give various parables regarding simcha, Chassidus always refers to a person when he marries his son or he marries his daughter. Here he's at a greater level of simcha than even at his own wedding. Why? Because the child is so close to a person that when something satisfactory, or more than satisfactory, something which calls for an inyan of simcha, happens to one of his children, this really puts the person in the proper level of simcha. With this introduction, the Rebbe continued, it's an opportune time to express a thank you and an appreciation to the children from Gan Yisrael that have came here for Shabbos. And he's thanking the parents, and he's thanking the counselors and the staff and the entire camp that brought the children from Gan Yisrael to be here with us on Shabbos. Chazal tell us, Gedoyla legima shemekareves, when people drink together, it creates a closeness. Therefore, let them all say l'chaim, and let them all sing a nigun. The Rebbe explained, the name of the camp is Gan Yisrael. What is the inyan of a Gan? The inyan of a Gan is a garden. What's the Taisha garden? A garden, the Rebbe continues, is a luxury. It's not a necessity. It's a luxury. It's not, a person's house can't be called a garden. A house is a house. A house is where a person is constantly. What is the inyan of a Gan? A Gan is an area where a person enters which brings him pleasure. That's the inyan of a Gan. For example, in Chassidus there's an expression, Tainuk timidi einoi tainuk. A person can't if a person will have a certain pleasure constantly, then it would lose its effect, then it's no longer a pleasure. Pleasure is something which comes from time to time. So the same we find by the Rebishter. There's the famous pasuk which Maimer of Yud Shvat is always on. Basi legani yachoisi kala. Hashem says he came to his garden. Legani lignuni. So what is the whole meaning of a gan? A gan is an area of pleasure. In other words, it's higher than a level of necessity. A house is a necessity. A person can't survive unless he has a house. A person has to have where to live. What is the Indian of a gan? It's a higher madrega. And here the name of the camp is Gan Yisrael. Talking on this subject, Rabbi also explained in general the greatness of a sleepaway camp. The Rebbe stressed, though a child all year round, child goes to yeshiva and gets a proper chinuch, but nonetheless, it comes the end of the day, the child comes home. And how good it is even at his home, still we cannot compare it. It's not that the child is under constant supervision as he is in a camp, and it's not, this is home and this is school, this is cheder, yeshiva, whatever we should call it. However, when the child is in camp, the child is in the same proper environment, not only during the day, not only for limited hours during the day, but he's there for the entire time, 24 hours a day. And a child could be supervised not only during activities, but a child could be supervised even when he's sleeping as well. And talking on this inyan, how sleeping properly is also important, the Rebbe mentioned the importance of sleeping with a yarmulke. For some of us may think we're sleeping, and machshava, dibur, and maise are not in effect when a person sleeps. Maise, deed, definitely he's not doing anything. Even dibur, even speaking, he also doesn't speak. Machshava, thoughts that a person has during the sleep, which basically we can refer to dreams and so forth. So it's brought in Svaram that the person doesn't even have a full control on his dreams, which he has during the sleep. So therefore one may say, being that his machshava, dibur, and maise are not in effect at the time, of what importance is it that a person should wear a yarmulke or a child should wear a yarmulke while they're sleeping? But the truth is, no, it is not so. Because at all times, a person is supposed to have on him an expression of Kabbalah soil, of acceptance of the yoke of the Rebishter. And regarding more particular, it is expressed by constantly having a yarmulke on one's head. And Mela, the Rebbe brought out the importance of seeing to it regarding adults and children as well, to see to it that during sleep, the yarmulke should also be there. And we should not underestimate on the importance of having a yarmulke on during sleep. Then the Rebbe continued that in halacha there is a concept, if one did not see a friend who is dear to him for a certain period of time, when he sees him again, in Shulchan Aruch it's mentioned that a bracha could be recited. Shulchan Aruch brings several stages of not seeing him. Shulchan Aruch brings that if one didn't see his friend for a certain amount of time, he can make a shechiyonu when he sees him. Shechiyanu we make as an expression of happiness, of satisfaction. So one Yid sees another Yid, this all comes in conjunction to the concept of Avas Yisrael as well also. And not only Avas Yisrael, but Achdus Yisrael, total unity amongst Yidden. And Mele, one sees a person whom we didn't see for a long time, Al Pi Halacha, he is to make a special bracha mentioning the Rebishter's name, B'Shem Malchus, which is an expression of gratitude to Hashem that he saw his friend again. The Rebbe is applying this regarding the people that have came here for Chafav, and amongst them there are many whom we haven't seen for more than a short time. We haven't seen them for a longer time. So their coming here is very much appreciated. Coming here, being together with us, something which is very, very dear to the Rebbe. Rebbe continued this Sikha, says something was brought to his attention regarding one of his institutions that is planning a cruise in a boat underwater. The Rebbe says initially, when he heard about it, he began thinking, what lesson in Avodas Hashem can we take out of a cruise on the water? The Baal Shem Tov teaches us that everything is Hashgacha Pratis. So, which means everything we see or hear, or anything we come into contact with, there is some lesson which we can, in Avodas Hashem, in serving the Rebishter, which we can derive from this. So the question arises, what can we derive from the fact that people are getting into a boat and sailing in the water and going in the waters? What relevance does this have to serve the Rebishter? The Rebbe says there are certain inyanim which we hear, there are certain matters which we hear, which it is very obvious and very simple to find the moral of it, how we can transmit it in Avodas Hashem. There are other inyanim which is harder. So the question arises about this inyan. Sailing in the waters, going on a cruise in the water, what is the lesson in Avodas Hashem which we can derive? The Rebbe continues. Basically, a person is designed to live on the Yabasha. A person lives on the earth, on land, and does not live in waters. If one wants to travel in water, what is the way that he can travel and be safe? That is only when he goes into a boat. The boat is what protects him and keeps a person's safety when a person chooses to be in water. When a person is on land, he's not in need of it. He can be safe even without it. What is the inyan of water? And what is the inyan of Yabasha, of land? Water, Chassidus teaches us, is based on pasuk, Mayim rabim lo yuchlu lachabos asahava. There's a pasuk, I think it's in Shir Hashirim, which is explained a lot in Chassidus. The flow of waters cannot destroy the love which Yidden have to the Eibishter. What is meant by the flow of waters? So Chassidus interprets this refers to the worries which a person has. Each and every one of us has daiges, has worries which we're carrying on our head. And many a times it's expressed in worries of parnasa, people not earning enough, and people being worried about their earnings. And this is just like there's a flow of water, there's a flow of thoughts, a flow of worry within a person. And this flow naturally interferes with the person's Avodas Hashem. Because we have these thoughts that are carrying us away, and we cannot serve the Rebishter properly. So this is how Chassidus interprets the pasuk, Mayim rabim lo yuchlu lachabos asahava, that the strong flow of waters will not destroy the love that Yidden have to the Rebishter. Even though, in other words, we are all involved with many worries on our heads, and there are things which are interfering with us to express our love to the Rebishter, still we will be able to overcome it, and it should not do away with the love which each and every Yid has. Same, the Rebbe says, is the concept of a boat sailing in the water. What's the idea? We're going into a boat. A boat is a protection from the flow of water. In other words, the same idea. When one sails in a boat, he's safe in the water. So when we're talking here about people going on a cruise, what is the lesson of Avodas Hashem which we can take out of it? The Rebbe says the lesson of Avodas Hashem is very obvious. The entire concept of protecting ourselves from the flow of waters, from the flow of outside thoughts that are coming into all of our minds and are interfering with us serving the Rebishter. So what is the idea of a boat? A boat is a protection against the water. So the same we are told, as far as each and every one of us is concerned, at all times, that we are to create a protection, a protector, that the water should not have any bad effect on us. We should remain safe in the waters. In other words, remaining safe in the outside waters, that are the thoughts of, as we just mentioned, the Mayim Rabim, thoughts of Parnasa and other daigas and other worries which are there, and they are interfering with us. So we are going into a boat. A boat is the protector from the flow of water that makes sure that wherever we are protected and we are safe, and that the flow of waters cannot have any negative damage on the person who is surrounded by the water. So again, here we see how from each and everything that we come into contact with, The teaching of the Baal Shem Tov is that anything and everything we can always take a lesson out of to serve the Rebishter from this particular matter. That's the entire concept of Hashgacha Pratis, that everything that is here in this world is here that we can derive a lesson from it, a lesson, a moral how to serve the Rebishter from it. Then the Rebbe continued later. So we keep on talking and demanding Avas Yisrael. And Avas Yisrael in the sense that V'ahavta l'reyacha kamoicha. You have to like your fellow Jew just like you like yourself. And who are we talking about? So we know the famous teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, that we have to like a Jew who's in the other part of the world, whom we never saw and we don't know, and we have to like him kamoicha, just like we're liking ourselves. And just like a person wants that he himself should be fully covered with Torah and mitzvahs, it is his obligation, it is each and every one of us, our obligation, as a result of Avas Yisrael, to influence the same on our friends, who as yet are not in this way. But it says there's a very strong question. We know that there's a concept of midas, of ethics. And each and every one of us is required to conduct in a way which should be suitable to the wish of HaKadosh Baruch. In fact, our sages tell us, there's an expression in Chazal, Sheyehei Shem Shamayim Misahev Al Yotcha, that each and every one of us is commanded to act in such a way, our conduct should be such that through our conduct Hashem's name should become beloved. In other words, when a Yid acts properly, he acts suitable as it's suitable to a Fromme Yid, and another person sees it, and if we're acting properly, Hashem's name becomes beloved by others as well. If our conduct is not a desirable conduct, this does not make HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name beloved, chas v'sholom. So we are told that we have to act in tact and proper, and our conduct has to be such that it should be suitable for a person who's trying to make the Rebishter's name beloved. This is what we are told on one hand. On the other hand, we are told that we have to approach a person whom we don't even know. Not only don't we know him, we don't even know if he's Jewish. And when we approach him, at times we are forced to ask a question, is he a Jew? And we are going out to introduce this person into an inyan of Yiddishkeit. How is this correspond to the general view of people choosing to live a free life? It says the Mishnah Novis tells us, the Rebbe says, Ein lacha ben chayren, who is considered a free person? The one who is oisik b'Torah, the one who dwells on Torah. But the world, however, does not consider this the interpretation of a person who is free. This is how we view it from Pirkei Avos. The world considers who is considered a free person who does not accept any dictations from anyone what to do. And especially in this country, neither the government dictates a person what to do, neither the leaders of government dictate people what to do, and everybody could really choose the type of life they desire without any interference. And this is what an average person in this country considers to be a free human being. And here we are told that we have to go over to these people and start telling them what they are to do in their lives. Start demanding from them Yiddishkeit. Start demanding from them the fulfillment of mitzvahs. Start demanding from them they should get closer to Yiddishkeit and so forth. How do we, as people who are acting in the proper conduct, acting properly, behaving properly, where do we get the right from to go to other people and start telling them what they are to do? Which is an extremely basic question regarding the whole inyan of Mivtzoyim and bringing people closer to Yiddishkeit. We are seeing to it that people begin putting on film or other specific mitzvahs or any other of the mitzvahs. Rabbi says the answer to this question, which is a very general question, we find in today's Pirkei Avos. Today we are saying the 5th Perek, and in today's Perek we have the answer to this question. Pardon? It tells us in the 5th Perek, there's Mishnah 13 and Mishnah 14. Mishnah 13, the Mishnah tells us there are 4 categories of people that give charity. The people that give tzedakah. Mishnah says the first one is he would give, he doesn't want others to give. Naturally, the most desirable is the one who gives himself and he wants others to give. Then the Mishnah tells us a 4th category. He doesn't give and he doesn't let others give. It's a category in contributors. Then we go to Mishnah 14. Mishnah 14 is Arba Midos B'Hilchei Beis HaMedrash. There are 4 categories of people that go to shul, that go to Beis HaMedrash. The one that goes and he does. The one that does, however, he doesn't go. Then the last category that the Mishnah refers to is the one that doesn't go and doesn't do. The Rebbe is asking a very obvious question. The Mishnah is talking about 4 categories of people that give tzedakah. The Mishnah is talking about 4 categories of people that go to shul. That go to shul, that give tzedakah. Yeah. How does the Mishnah enlist as one of the categories the one that doesn't go and doesn't do? And the same the one that doesn't give and doesn't want others to give. It's not a category of shul goer, he doesn't go. Or it's not a category of a contributor to the one that doesn't give any tzedakah or even doesn't let others give. I was explaining. Mishnah here is talking about all Yidden. And each and every Yid comes into this category of the Hoylech Beis HaMedrash. Why? Because each and every Jew has a shaychus, has a relationship to the Beis HaMedrash. However, there are various categories. There's the one that goes and he does. Naturally, he's the most desirable. However, the one that doesn't go and he doesn't do, he also has a shaychus to Beis HaMedrash. Why? Because he's also a potential Beis HaMedrash goer. Why? Because every Yid has a shaychus to Beis HaMedrash. We can't exclude and say that there are Yidden that have no shaychus to Beis HaMedrash. The same when we're talking about tzedakah. Every Yid has a shaychus to the act of tzedakah. Tzedakah is an expression of Avos Yisrael. There are tremendous things in tzedakah. And therefore, every Yid has a shaychus to tzedakah. There are those Yidden that are not giving tzedakah. And not only he's not giving, he's not letting others give tzedakah. This means that right now, he's at a moment where we don't see him giving the tzedakah. Once it will be brought to his attention, once we will alert him to it, once we will bring to his attention the importance of tzedakah, he will also become one of the noisnei tzedakah. So again, when we're talking about noisnei tzedakah, or we're talking about Hoylchei Beis HaMedrash, every single Yid is included in this. There are no exceptions. However, there are those Yidden who unfortunately are not going to shul yet. But he also has a shaychus to shul. So when we are going and we're getting close to a Yid, and we're trying to influence a Yid, let's go to shul, or any other mitzvah, any Indian, going to shul is a general expression of one being having a close relation to the Eibishter. So, it's not the taich that we are going or we are interfering with something, that we are interfering with the personal life of a person and we are dictating him what he should do. And therefore, as the Rebbe raised the question, how can we view this ethical bichlal? It is not so. All that we are doing is we are alerting the person to something which he himself also has a shaychus to, something which is his, but unfortunately he's not aware of it yet. and we are alerting him, we are bringing to his attention that he is a Hilach Beis HaMedrash, he is a Noisen Tzedakah, it has a shaykhus to him just like it has a shaykhus to me, and to every one of us. And we want to bring this person aware, we want to make him aware of something within him which he's not aware of as yet. And this is how we find the answer to this question in this Mishnah and Pirkei. As it's customary in the Farbrengen that the Rebbe refers to a Rashi in the weekly Sedra, and also to explain a Rambam, the Shiurim of Rambam. In Rashi, the Rebbe raised two questions today, in two separate Rashis, in Parshas Eikev. First, Rebbe went through the Rashi in Kapitel Yud Aleph, chapter 11, pasuk 13. It's in the latter part of the Seder. It's after Shishi. In fact, it's the first pasuk of the second parsha of Shema. V'hoyim Shemoya. V'hoyim Shemoya tishmol mitzvaysan shanoichim mitzav eschem, which we say in Shema daily, second parsha. Rashi quotes the words V'hoyim Shemoya tishmu, if you will hear, if you will listen to my words. And Rashi tells us as follows: Im tishma biyoshon, tishma bechodosh. If you will listen old, you will listen new. In other words, what Rashi is out to explain right away, as it seems from interpretation of Rashi, is why is there a double expression? Shamoya tishmu. Why Shamoya tishmu? So Rashi tells us there are two types of hearing. There's a im tishma biyoshon, tishma bechodesh. Rashi continues. V'chein v'hoyam shechoyach tishkach. There's also a pasuk which we already had. If you will forget my teachings, the Rebbe says. So there's also a double expression, shechoyach tishkach. So what does that mean? Im ischalto lishkoyach. If you began to forget, soifach shetishkach kula. The end will be you will forget more. In other words, again, a double forgetting. If you began to forget, you will forget yet more. Not enough. Rashi continues. Shekein kasav in Megillah. This is what our sages tell us in Masechta Megillah. Im tazveini yoim yimayim azveka. Regarding Torah, if we will leave Torah alone for one day, Torah will stay away from us for 2 days. That is why we never should stop learning Torah, because once we stop for a day, it'll already go into another day. We shouldn't do it. So the Rebbe is asking, first of all, obviously, as we mentioned, we see Rashi is kind of troubled why there's a double expression, Shamoya Tishma. Truth is, if we go through Chumash up until now, we find many double expressions. Pasayach Tiftach, Nosein Titein, many words that the Torah expresses them twice. What is the meaning of it? Why? Because normally when we find the word mentioned twice, it's an expression that of stressing the concept. Nosein Titein, you should give. You should constantly give. You should Pasayach Tiftach es Yadecha, you should open your hands. So the pasuk uses an expression, open your hands to tzedakah. Pasayach Tiftach, not just once open your hands, a double opening, a stronger stress on opening our hands for tzedakah. So if we have here the words Shamoya Tishmu, so what's the problem? Shamoya Tishmu, we have to listen carefully to the words of Hashem. So why does Rashi make a whole interpretation? Like we have to make sure we listen. We listen to old and we listen to the new. And gets into a comparison of Im Shechayach Tishkach. Another expression where we have double forgetting, and Rashi explains that expression. Why get involved in this whole thing? And also, if Rashi is explaining the words Shamoya Tishmu, why does Rashi quote V'hoya im Shamoya Tishmu? The quotations of Rashi are also important and are accurate. So, if Rashi is explaining the double expression of Shamoya Tishmu, then this is all what Rashi should quote from the pasuk. Why is Rashi quoting also V'hoya im Shamoya Tishmu? So the Rebbe is learning that the word im, this is what's leading Rashi into the interpretation, and that is why Rashi has to quote it. Pasuk is telling us V'hoya im Shamoya Tishmu, if you will listen to the words of Hashem. What kind of if? V'hoya kishmoya tishmu. It will be when you will listen to the words of Hashem. Because not listening, the pasuk talks about further also. Be careful if our hearts will turn away from Hashem. So what is the if here? Pasuk should say, this is what the situation will be when you listen to Hashem. V'hoya kishmoya tishmun, when you will listen to Hashem. And chas v'shalom, when we don't, the pasuk talks about a few psukim further. What's this word im here? And the word im seems to Rashi to be an extra word. And that is why Rashi is getting involved in explaining the pasuk and is telling us that we can't teach here shomoya tishmu, that it means an extra stress in hearing and listening, like we would normally interpret a double word. Here the meaning is a stronger one, and a different one rather. And the way Rashi is learning is v'haya im shomoya kama. If you will listen, in other words, if you will listen once, then already tishmu, then you will listen again. And that is why Rashi has to compare it to the contrary. What is the contrary to listening? Forgetting. And Rashi is bringing out that by forgetting, the pasuk uses a similar expression. V'hoya im shechoyach tishkach. What does the forgetting there mean? Also the same way. V'hoya im shechoyach kama. If you will forget. What will happen if you forget? If you forget a little bit, tishkach, you will forget more. So it's not that the shechoyach tishkach is an expression of strong forgetting. It's different. Shechoyach is phase 1 of forgetting. This will lead to tishkach, which is phase 2 of forgetting. The same we are learning here in the opposite way. V'hoya im shemoya tishmu. V'hoya im shemoya. If you will listen fine. You know what's going to happen if it'll be Shemaya? Then Tishmu. You will always listen. If you will listen Bechada, Biyashan, Tishma Bechada. You will always be listening to the Rebbe. So it is the word Im that is the cause of Rashi to learn this way in the pasuk, and that is why Rashi has to quote it as well. Because this is what the entire Perush is based on. So Rashi has to quote V'hoya im Shemaya Tishmu and tell us the Perush. Now we have another Rashi in this week's Sedre. In the same pasuk, Ula avdai b'chol avavchem. We have to serve the Rebishter with all our heart. What does this mean? So Rashi gets into an interpretation. Avoida shehi belev. It means serving the Rebishter through our hearts. How do we serve the Rebishter through our hearts? Tefillah, davening. Shehat tefillah kruya avoida. Davening is called an avoida. Where do we know it? Shenema. Rashi brings a pasuk. Where is the pasuk? The pasuk is in the Nil, in the Navi Daniel. But in parentheses here they inserted where the pasuk is in the Nil. But Rashi just quotes the pasuk. Shenema elakoch dian polach le b'tedira. The God you're davening to constantly. V'chiyesh pulchan beBavel. Was there a mizbeach in Bavel? In Bavel they didn't have the Beis Hamikdash. So what does it mean? It means they were davening to the Rebishter. So how is serving the Rebishter avoida? Avoida could mean korbanos. But here where we see the concept of avoida applied in Bavel there were no korbanos, so we must say that it means davening. Fine. Not enough. The Chaim beDavid. By David we find also a pasuk in Tehillim, Tikon tefillah sikteires lefanech. Consider my tefillah as if I brought kteires. This Perish and Rashi is taken from a Sifri. But we know that the guidelines of Sifri don't always apply to the guidelines of Rashi, because Rashi is guided by the rule of sticking to Pshat. The realm of Pshat, this is first and foremost the Indian of Rashi. Now, if we look into Sifri, we will notice that Rashi does change from the Sifri. There are two proofs that Rashi brings that Tefillah is meant here in the pasuk. The pasuk means Tefillah. One proof Rashi brings from the Nil. The second proof that Rashi brings from David. Who lived before, David or the Nil? David. So the first proof Rashi should have brought from David, and the second one he should have brought from the Nil. If we go into Rashi a little deeper, we will notice something else. we will notice regarding the pasuk in Daniel, Rashi doesn't mention the name. Rashi doesn't mention we're talking about Daniel. Rashi brings proof from a pasuk which shows that davening could be avodah, means tefillah, so therefore we're not limited only to karbanos. So now that the pasuk tells us here, serve the Rebishter with all your heart, it means tefillah. It comes to the raya, to the proof which Rashi has from Tehillim. There Rashi mentions David. V'chein beDavid we find. Also interesting that Rashi many times refers to David. David had a title. His title was David HaMelech, King David. Rashi doesn't refer to him as King David, he refers to him as David. All this requires interpretation. Rabbi says the explanation for it is as follows. First, the pasuk is looking to prove that avodah can apply not only to karbanos, avodah can apply to tefillah, and the pasuk brings proof from a pasuk in Daniel. However, the pasuk does not mention Daniel. Rashi rather does not mention Daniel by name. The Rebbe says the reason for it: Daniel was a very exceptional person. He was close to the king. He was a special individual. So we may think that this is an attitude only for a special person. However, for average people, this is not the interpretation of La'avdei B'chol Avavcha. So Rashi can't mention Daniel by name, because if he would mention Daniel by name, it would definitely lead to say, this is something for Daniel. So Rashi doesn't mention Daniel by name. He just brings the pasuk. After bringing the pasuk, Rashi tells us, we find the same by somebody else. But by whom do we find it? By David. And not because David was a melech. It's irrelevant the fact that he was a melech. David was taka a melech, but David had a special closeness with all of Klal Yisrael. And this is what's important here. David being as part of Klal Yisrael and being intermingled with everyone and having a close relation with everyone. And even by David, we also find the inyan of tefillah being considered an avodah, and not only through korbanos, but praying by the Rebishter that his tefillah should be considered like Teiras, which was a korban. So therefore, we understand why Rashi mentions David and not David HaMelech. We also understand why Rashi does not quote that it is mentioned so specifically by Daniel, but just brings the pasuk from Daniel. And we also understand why Rashi brings the pasuk from Daniel first, because this is the main evidence. Because we should have it really confirmed that way, we could also bring an additional raya from a pasuk which was recited by David HaMelech. In the interpretation of Rambam, it's in the halachas of Shgogos. The Rebbe discussed the inyan of when one brings a korban for committing a crime unintentionally. Now the question arises, if he committed several crimes unintentionally, if they could all be included in the same korban. And al pi halacha it is not so. For each crime that he did unintentionally, he has to bring a specific korban. The Rebbe got into explaining this, that each crime, which means a crime, an avera. An avera is a pigam, that means he has affected his soul. So that is why each time the soul was affected, it has to be treated separately. Not only does it have to be treated separately, but it's also important to know on which day he transgressed the avera. The Rebbe explained this also because when one does an avera every day, has its revelation of godliness set for that day. And if he did an avera on that day, it means that he affected in the kedusha which was revealed on that day. That is why a person has to know exactly on the day that he did the avera as well. Rebbe tied it into explanation of the Mittel Rebbe. It's brought in Chassidus that there's a concept of a hisbeinenus klolis and a hisbeinenus protis. Hisbeinenus means when a person gets into thoughts and starts making his own personal calculations. So a person could do it in a very general way. So the Mittler Rebbe tells us that when it's done in a general way, it's insufficient. Why? Because his hisbeinenus klolis, the Mittler Rebbe continues, will not bring about the same results as a hisbeinenus protis. When a person gets involved in his mind and starts thinking and starts getting into more nitty-gritty, more into details, what has to be corrected, what has to be rectified, how he can uplift himself and improve himself, and so on and so forth, this will lead him to mindset. This will lead to action and to deeds. However, when he will just have a general thought, I have to change, I have to become better, I have to improve, and not getting involved into details, it will not bring the proper results. It will not bring the fruitful results in no way compared as when the hisbeinenus is a hisbeinenus protis. Rebbe concluded the Farbrengen, a famous expression which the Rebbe refers to. It's an expression from the previous Rebbe, Imdu hochin kulchem. It's written in one of his letters, that all of us should stand ready to accept the brachas of the Rebishter. The Rebbe said we are already at a time of Imdu hochin kulchem. We should accept the brachas from Hashem. And Friedrich Rebbe expressed himself, that time when he wrote it obviously, that all that is needed is we have to polish our buttons. Famous expression which the Rebbe refers to. Briefly, that soldier in the army has to be dressed perfectly. Everything has to be clean and everything has to be pressed accordingly, so forth. However, even his buttons also have to have the proper shine. So it's an expression from the previous Rebbe that we're already ready for the coming of Mashiach, that all we have to do is the final touch-up, which means the final polish of our buttons. Rebbe says that since the Friedrich Rebbe said that, we have already accomplished more, we've already polished buttons as well. So we are mamish ready for the coming of Mashiach. The Rebbe concluded at the end of the Farbrengen, he again referred to what we spoke about earlier, and by asking everyone, male and female, to respond to what was discussed earlier regarding the Mishnah, which we spoke about, that each and every Yid has a shaykhis to Beis HaMedrash, and each and every Yid has a shaykhis to the giving of tzedakah, meaning that all we got to do is make him aware of it, and then we will be rewarded with the proper reward. And what is the proper reward? The Rebbe says the proper reward is that Mashiach come and we have the Geula Shleima, and as the Rebbe keeps on stressing recently, that the moment for Geula will come, stressed it today as well several times, the Rebbe will take us out of Golus immediately, and the Lo Ikvam, he wouldn't hold us up, afilu keheref ayin, even a second, even the blink of an eye, and he will take us out of Golus immediately.